Hi there, welcome back to the Community of Readers video blog. We're following the Old Testament readings for the Monkey Bar Challenge, and this week we're in the middle chapters of Deuteronomy. This is called Work, Rest and Play. Deuteronomy, as we said last week, is Moses' final speech to the people of Israel. In these middle chapters, 12 to 26, he moves on from remembering the past and goes into recapping the specifics of some of the legal code. And what we find here is a law that has no regard for the sacred secular divide of our modern times. We have worship of Yahweh discussed in the same breath as economic policy or judicial regulations or marriage or war or civil rights. In fact, in many ways this law is more dissimilar from our contemporary context than it was from its neighbouring context, because the gods of the Egyptians were the ones that bestowed power on the pharaohs, and the local pagan deities demanded sacrifice for economic or national protection. Our Western contemporary democracies have long banned God talk from the corridors of power for loads of really good reasons. We've learned from our history and from the oppression that theocracy brought us. But one of the challenges we face, and one of the things that we maybe lack as a result, and that Deuteronomy holds out for us, is a way of living faith that doesn't relegate it to just a part of our lives, but allows it to influence us in the boardroom, or the bedroom, or the playground, wherever we find ourselves, in every aspect of our life. Now, there are loads of specific things about the law, as always, that are highly questionable in today's context, but equally there are loads of aspects of the law that demonstrate visionary and creative ideas being made law. One of these is the tithing system. So we tend to misunderstand this because we think it's about each family bringing 10% of their produce or income and giving it away. But in actual fact, the tithing law we find in Deuteronomy 14 describes a scenario where a family will bring 10% of their produce, and then they bring it to the Lord and then eat it together in his presence, inviting the Levites from the local town to come and share in it. It's only every 3 years that the tithe is used solely for the benefit of the community. And so enshrined in the Israelites' fiscal law is the ability not only for them to care for the poor, but also to connect in focused awareness of the God who has provided for them. You've also got this integrated living in the appointment of the king, in contrast to the pharaohs of Egypt, who had absolute power and were seen as gods. A king in Israel has to write out the whole of the law in order to show themselves no better than their brothers. From the top down, the law of the Lord was to permeate every aspect of life. And we also see this integration of faith and life in terms of faith and justice, in terms of laws on loans, harvesting, and of course the now famous Jubilee regulations, where every 7 years all debts are cancelled. Of course, the Jubilee law is something that our modern world is still trying to get to grips with, as it was articulated through the Jubilee Drop the Debt campaign. While people applaud its sentiment, the reality of what it means is still confounding our modern world. And for laws on festivals, refuge hideouts for those on manslaughter charges, the rights of slaves, farming techniques, military conquest, governmental structures, the financing of the priests, and food hygiene. For all of these to be so infused with theological motivation and spiritual vitality is a triumph of Israelite lawmaking. We've said many times there are aspects of this law that are highly questionable in today's context, if not even in the Israelites' own context. But that shouldn't prevent this law from remaining a masterpiece of bringing faith and life together. Now, we talk about integration, and I'm using this word of integrating faith and life. Of course, for the Israelites, they wouldn't have even contemplated, as would any of the cultures at that time, of breaking faith from everyday life. But for us, we talk about integration because I think we have a task to put back together what should never have been broken. Our task is now one of integration, of reimagining how we engage in the world. We need to do this in a way that takes seriously our history. We don't want a return to theocracy. We don't want to reignite our colonial ambitions. But I believe there is a way for us to think and imagine how faith impacts our democratic, individualized, economy-driven Western culture in a way that could transform us, transform how we live, and help us reconnect with one another. Maybe it's not actually by enshrining any of this in law. One of the problems of theological lawmaking is it tends to exclude other voices. And democracy is great at bringing all the voices to the table, and in a civil society where we don't want everybody, we certainly don't want to force everybody to share our faith, we need a law that is able to move beyond just being driven by a faith agenda. But for us to have an integrated faith and life affects our spirituality. It stops spirituality being about just some fuzzy feelings we have, but it makes spirituality really practical. Caring for our family is part of our spirituality. Managing a team at work is part of our spirituality. Budgeting of finances can be a spiritual act of worship, as can playing hard at sport. What makes it spiritual is our connecting together, connecting with each other and connecting with God. And so in the most mundane and ordinary aspects of our life, we can be aware of that connection, whether it's the food we eat for breakfast that was farmed by somebody we've never met in another part of the world, whether it's the clothes we wear that bear the fingerprints of those who stitched them, whether it's the communities that are affected by the investments that the banks that we save with make. Each of our day-to-day decision making, every aspect of our life connects us to other people, many of whom we'll never have met. And to be aware of that and to think through the implications of that is spiritual. And it helps connect us to God. Just like the Israelites ate the tithe together in the presence of Yahweh, and were able to connect with each other as a result. As we look to connect with those around us, whether locally or globally, we are brought together in deeper relationship with God. Whether it's our work, our rest, or our play, this can be our spiritual act of worship.